Welcome back to the show. On today's episode, I want to share some ideas on how to get results. And results encompasses a large area for sure, but I'm hoping an idea or two, maybe even 3 ideas on this episode is going to give you some tools that can help you in your own life. In a recent article written by John Rampton, he interviewed Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, we know, is a multi-billionaire, and he listed a number of areas that he employs in his own life that has helped him become more productive and to get better results. I want to run through many of those ideas, again, he heard from Elon Musk. Number 1 is constantly question how to improve. Constantly question how to improve. He writes, Elon Musk is always thinking about how he can do things more efficiently. He admitted to having never read productivity books, yet he's constantly becoming a more efficient person by observing his life and habits. He notices when he's wasting time and is constantly examining his daily experiences. Although, he writes, this might seem obvious, having the attention and effort of constantly evaluate areas for improvement, he says it's rather difficult. Number 2, he says you need to maintain what's called hyper-focus. He says Musk makes it challenging to interrupt. He doesn't have notifications constantly buzzing when he sits down to work. Instead, he's entirely engulfed with the task at hand. So that allows him to put both more energy toward it and accomplish his work more quickly. Let me interject an idea here. How many times haven't you started on a project? It could be anything from email to writing to working on a project. And you allow what I've read and called the priorities of other people to get in the way and stop your momentum from doing the things that you really need to be doing. Back to the article. Number 3, save time spent on email. Like many of us, Musk spends a significant amount of time in his email. That said, he's learned to cut that time down as much as possible. He doesn't fret over perfecting phrases or long messages. Instead, he keeps them concise and to the point. Number 4, he says appropriately multitask. He says you have to do things like eating while responding to emails or having conversations. Again, he's chosen to learn how to leverage his time to be more efficient in a smaller amount of time. Let me just pause and just suggest this to you, that if you did a calculation of the past 3 days, or maybe the next 3 days, and see how much time you have wasted doing things that are not productive, I think it would probably blow your mind. And even more of a mind blow is if you calculate all that time and add it all up and realize that you've probably literally wasted 2-3 hours a day that you could have been leveraging that for something that is much more productive. He says in number 5, have extreme control over your calendar. Musk has his calendar broken into 5-minute chunks. That makes it extremely challenging to waste his time. He's thinking about it all the way down to 5-minute increments. This makes an hour-long meeting feel like an enormous block of time. So again, 5-minute intervals. I'm not there by a long shot, but that is an idea that you might want to think about entertaining. Number 6, set optimistic goals. Steve Jobs is famous, the article says, for creating something called the reality distortion field. It's a term his employees coined because he would make it seem like they could accomplish tasks or projects in periods of times that were not humanly possible. Therefore, he was, quote, distorting reality. Elon Musk does something similar. He sets overly optimistic goals while he's known for frequently failing to reach those goals on time. But it forces him and his teams to push much harder. He says there's a constant sense of overwhelming urgency that boosts productivity. I would suggest to you, and I've done this before multiple times, is set what maybe I'll call artificial deadlines, or even fake deadlines that push you to do stuff in a more compact period of time with a higher sense of urgency and will enable you to do some things that maybe if you didn't have that artificial deadline, it would be delayed for an extended period of time. Number 7, truly embrace improvement. He says you should take the approach that you're wrong. Your goal is to be less wrong. That is, he's always tweaking himself to get better and better and better. Number 8, obsess over learning. Elon Musk is brilliant, the author says. He read 2 books a day throughout a long period in his childhood and continues to obsess over learning. His old employees have shared stories about the ways in which he abstracted compelling information from them, which speaks greatly to his character. Again, he is a learning machine. Now let me just pause a moment. I would suggest to you that every single very successful person throughout history, by the way, has been a learning machine. So doesn't that suggest to you and I that if we want to be very successful people in whatever form that looks like for you, you need to be a learning machine? Again, if you do the homework and do the bios of every successful person, they're always critiquing, they're always learning. Number 9, empower others. Beyond his reality distortion field, Elon Musk empowers his employees unlike almost any leader. People around the world dream of what it would be like to work for Musk because of the reputation he's developed. He's empowered people. He doesn't take all the power to his head. He doesn't work that way. He empowers people. True leaders empower people. Managers want all the glory and all the credit for themselves. Number 10, forget what others think about you. That has been one of the challenges of some people I know very, very well. They spend an enormous amount of time worrying about what other people think about them. I think it was Colin Powell said that if you ever want to achieve anything great in life, I'm loosely paraphrasing his words, he said that you can't worry about what other people think about you. In fact, I believe it was an actor, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. Somebody asked him one time, what do you think about all these people who write these bad things about you? He says, what bad things? I don't even read them. I don't know what you're talking about. There are some things that you and I don't need to be seeing or reading because they will distract you from forward momentum to do some of the things that you're trying to accomplish. One of my initial mentors is the late Jim Rohn, Jimrohn. Jim Rohn was a business owner and a teacher. And if you look him up, again, Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N, he has a boatload of advice that has helped millions of people achieve certain levels of grandeur and success in their own lives. So I want to share some ideas from Jim Rohn that I've implemented into my life. He said, quote, learning is the beginning of wealth. Learning is the beginning of wealth. Learning is the beginning of health. Learning is the beginning of spirituality, and searching and learning is where the miracle process all begins. He says formal education is going to make you a living, but self-education can make you a fortune. Do you know how many people stop learning after school, meaning after high school or college? They just stop learning and stop evolving. But the most successful people continue to learn and evolve every single day. He says the book you don't read won't help. The book you read won't help. If someone's going down the wrong road, he doesn't need motivation to speed him up. What he needs is education to turn him around. Now, just pause for just a minute here. 98%, maybe 90%, I'm trying to be kind, 90% of the people that you know don't understand these concepts that we share on these shows. 90% of the people that you know don't understand how critical it is to be self-educated, to develop the habits that they need to develop, to surround themselves with people that are smarter than them and not be intimidated by that wisdom. They don't get that at all. Jim Rohn said, some people read so little, they have rickets of the mind. He says, you miss a meal if you have to, but don't miss a book. That's something that my parents have really instilled into me for a long time, decades, is how much information you can get from reading a book and developing the habit of reading books. Most of us can't afford to pay people, successful people, to come into our home and teach us. $5,000 an hour, $25,000 an hour. Most of us can't afford that. But they write books for $19.99 or $29.99 or even $50. You can buy their book and learn so much from them for a fraction of the cost it would be for them to sit in your house or you to travel to where they are. Reading can literally change your life. Jim Rohn said, nourish the mind like you would your body. The mind cannot survive on junk food. In a recent episode, I shared how, as a kid, I would sit in front of the TV before school and after school and not really do a whole lot. Just watch the superheroes and the Wonder Twins and the Justice League and Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days and a bunch of other shows. Ultraman was a big one I used to love. Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy. But all of those shows never got me 1 inch closer to goals that I may have wanted to achieve. Not one of those shows. So I'm asking you, where are you wasting time in your life that's keeping you from getting the results that you really, really do want to achieve in your life in a dramatic way? I'm asking you, got to think outside the box if you really want to achieve anything extraordinary at all. Jim Rohn goes on to say, life responds to deserve and not to need. He said, it doesn't say, if you need, you will reap. It says, if you plant, you will reap. The guy says, I really need to reap. Then you really need to plant. How many times haven't you seen people that really want to achieve certain things in their lives, but they refuse to get out of bed consistently to do the things that they need to do to achieve these great things? Jim Rohn says, the few who do are the envy of the many who only watch. Again, the few who do are the envy of the many who only watch. Think about a sports game, a baseball game, basketball game, football game, hockey game, whatever game you're into, soccer game. The majority of the people are where? Where are they? They are on the field? I don't think so. The majority of the people are where? They're in the stands, watching the few on the field. Guess I'm asking you today in a variety of different ways, where do you want to be? Do you want to be on the field as one of the players? Or do you want to be in the stands as the fans, as the watchers, as maybe the dreamers that refuse to pay the price that the people on the field consistently pay to earn the right to be on the field? That's a question that I can't answer for you. I'll ask it again maybe a little different way. Are you willing to pay the price consistently to be one of the few on the field, or are you comfortable being in the stands of the people, with the people that pay money to watch the people on the field? I was one of the people, not too many years ago, that were happy being in the stands, applauding all the people that were on the field. It took a radical mind shift, and for me to look in the mirror and say, John, you're going to fail at this, whatever I'm trying to do, multiple times before I succeed and earned the right to be on the field. And that is a constant pattern for every single successful person, whether they're in sports or in business or in some other area of life. They're going to fail constantly before they earn the right to be on the field. Muhammad Ali said something to the effect of, the hard work was done out of the boxing ring and out away from the lights in the dark places before he would ever be able to be in front of the crowd. Jim Rohn says, the soil says, don't bring me your need, bring me your seed. He says you must learn to translate wisdom and strong feelings into labor. He says you can really do two things. You can either plant in the spring or beg in the fall. Plant in the spring or beg in the fall. He tells this great story about ants. how ants think winter all spring. Ants think winter all summer. They put aside what they need to put aside instinctively, because they have little tiny brains, little tiny things. Their instinct takes over to do the things that they need to do to survive in the winter. Now, we have these big brains. We're human beings. And yet some of us do things that are not very smart and do things that at the end of our lives or at the end of a period of time, we have nothing to show for it because we refuse to do the things on the front end in order to reap stuff that we really want to achieve on the back end. Jim Rohn talks about so many things. He talks about how ants never quit. They talk about when they come to an obstruction or something in the path, they find a way to go around it, over it, under it. Somehow they get through it. When some of us that go through some difficult times or obstructions or distractions, some of us view those things as maybe a sign that we're not supposed to do certain things or go as far as that we initially thought that we wanted to go or to achieve a certain goal. Maybe that's a sign from God that we're not supposed to go that route, when in fact it was maybe just to see how willing you are to push past the discouragement of that moment. Running into people like that will want to slow you down, you're going to find so many of them in your life because they are not like the ants, because again, Jim Rohn says the ants think winter all summer. They think storm. They learn how to handle the hiccups that come down their lives. Sometimes you gotta reach a point in your life that you're disgusted. Let me share a quick story with you. Way back in 1983, I was just about to graduate from high school, and I was offered a work-study program back then, and I was hired by a photo lab. At that time, for about 3 hours a day, I would study photography, and I wanted to be a photographer because I had a serious speech impediment, and I wanted not to be in front of people. Look where I am now. I wanted to be behind people and be behind a camera so I wouldn't have to talk. So I was hired by this photo lab, and part of my job was to sit in literally a dark room that was roughly 6 feet by 6 feet and process senior portraits in literally a black room with this machine and a thing I would click with my foot that would process pictures. So I did that for 8 or 9 hours a day. And it was a temp job, but that situation, that opportunity, I'll put it that way, got me thinking about, is this where I want to be for the rest of my life? So again, this is late '83. So the next year, I was offered another job. That was a permanent job as I was about to graduate from high school. But that job was literally to talk to people most of the day. Now, this time I was about 18 years old. And the stutter I had was really, really bad, at least in my own mind. And there were certain things that I struggled saying, certain words I struggled saying because I'd get stuck, as you saw earlier in the show. And it was humiliating, and it still is. It's hugely embarrassing. So I took a chance because I knew that if I was going to eventually have a similar job of working in that dark room, that I really was only going to amount to so much. I was only going to be able to earn so much amount of money per year. And then this other opportunity came up in a certain business, but it pushed me that I had to talk to people. And I cannot describe the terror that I had back then about talking to people. So I can remember the days that a customer would walk into the store where I was hired, and they would ask me a question, and I would just literally get stuck trying to explain what I knew in my head. I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't get the words out because of the horrible stutter. And it was humiliating. I can remember driving home crying and just being so embarrassed that I felt like an idiot, a fool, because I couldn't get the words out. So part of the job is when customers would call the store, I would have to answer the phone, and the store was called Photo First. Photo First was the name of the store. So I would have to answer the phone, Photo First, and I would get stuck on the F letter. And I don't want to do it because it's humiliating, but I would get stuck on trying to push out the letter F in Photo First. And my boss at the time, Sharon Tringali, would call me sometimes when she was off duty and coach me to say Photo First fluently over the phone. And this happened so many times that she would call and just help me, because when she wasn't testing me, sometimes I would cheat and say hello or may I help you. That I could get out relatively easily. But that Photo First was a real challenge for me at the time. So I had to keep pushing myself to face the embarrassment and the people laughing at me consistently, not just once in a while, but all the time. They would laugh at me and say, "What? I can't understand what you're saying," or they would finish a sentence that they thought I was going to say because I couldn't get the words out. This happened for a long time. The point I'm trying to make is that if you want to achieve anything extraordinary in your life, you're going to have to take the chance consistently of looking foolish. Certainly you don't have a stuttering problem. Thankfully, I'm glad that you probably don't have that problem. But you may have another challenge that you are trying to overcome. Maybe you have a lisp, or maybe you think that you're the wrong color for a certain position, or maybe you think that the way you were raised, or where you were raised, or your lack of education, or your lack of skills in a certain area are going to keep you from doing something that you really want to achieve in your life. I'm telling you right now that it doesn't have to be that way. You have to constantly push yourself through some of your most difficult internal struggles if you eventually want to get through it. Are you going to master it eventually? I don't know. I can't tell you that I've mastered speech. You heard earlier in the show, I got stuck on some words. I could edit that out. I probably won't. But the point is that I have to push through still struggles that I go through today. And I think it's the same for you too. If you want to do something that's beyond what you've ever done before, you're going to have to consistently push yourself past that comfort zone that you've lived in for such a long period of time. Benjamin Disraeli said, "Nothing can resist the human will." If you look at almost every sports star out there, they push themselves to do the extraordinary. One person, I can't remember her name, gave herself, she created, which probably wasn't new, but she gave herself the 5-second rule. And she still does it. She's doing very well in business and has a great family. But she knows that most days she doesn't want to get up in the morning. So she gives herself the 5-second rule. So she counts down. She's laying there in bed, really don't want to get out of bed. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then she jumps out of bed. Whatever works for you, it works for her. The 5-second rule works. I've started adopting that habit some days in my own life. Some things that I really don't want to do, I'll give myself the 5-second rule to push myself to do some of the stuff that I need to be doing, but don't want to do at the moment. Again, if you master some of the tools that some very successful people have been able to achieve, like Jim Rohn, like other people, you can do it too. I can't overemphasize the importance that you develop the habit of reading books by people that have achieved a level of success in their lives that's pretty extraordinary. Now, you might say, well, John, I'm not a great reader. Well, become a great reader. It's just a matter of habit. I'm not saying that you have to remember every page that you read. I'm not saying that at all. But the smarter people that I've met over the years and read about consistently are people that read information about people who know more than they do, and they always have a highlighter in their hand to highlight ideas that they can go back to and quickly look at, refer back to, and remind themselves of certain areas that they need to recall. So again, the majority of things you're going to attempt, the first 50 times, you're going to fall on your face. I guarantee it. Not every professional baseball player, soccer player, football player, basketball player has ever become great by trying it one time, or 10 times, or 50 times. the most successful, the most wealthy, the richest people on the planet, the smartest people on the planet understand that consistency is the key to extraordinary results. Again, consistency is the key to extraordinary results. If there's one idea that you're going to walk away from this show, this episode, is consistency is the key to get extraordinary results. I hope an idea or two helped you in this show that you, in fact, can get such extraordinary results in your own life, it's going to blow your mind. My name is John Carver. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back real soon. Take care.